buddy, put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
That was just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show, streaming live across the world.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Live around the world on the internet at MichaelDukesShow.com and across the state of Alaska on this your favorite radio station and/or FM translator. Hello, my friends. Good morning and welcome to the program. It is hump day, middle of the week. Man, just rapidly coming at you. We're only one more day in July here. Good morning and welcome to the program. Thank you for coming in and joining us. A jam-packed show for us today. We have got State Senator Mike Shower is waiting in the wings. He's in the green room eating my donuts and drinking my virtual coffee. We're going to get to him here in just 1 second. We got lots of stuff to go over with him in regards to the special session and things that are happening, the gubernatorial race and more. And then in hour two, speaking of gubernatorial race, we will be joined by State Senator Shelley Hughes, who will be coming in with us and talking with us about her run for governor, her vision for the state. And that's all happening again in hour two this morning of the big radio show. So lots of stuff happening here this morning. So I guess that's it. The big news, of course, was the tsunami warning yesterday after that record-breaking earthquake off the Kamchatka Peninsula in Russia. 8.8 magnitude earthquake, which, if you've seen the videos, was big. And then, of course, earlier this morning, a volcano erupted on the Kamchatka Peninsula. It's the apocalypse happening in Kamchatka. Anyway, it's pretty crazy. No reported injuries or deaths, minor injuries in Russia, but no reported injuries or death anywhere else that the tsunami warnings went on. Big traffic jam in Hawaii. They had, of course, tsunami warnings from Japan, Hawaii, up and down the north part of the West Coast and Western Aleutians, and even here down in Homer, although there really wasn't much of a chance, apparently, of that happening. But yeah, I mean, I didn't even hear about it for like an hour and a half before I got the news that it was going on. We didn't get the bleep on our phones or anything. Anyway, kind of crazy, and kind of spooky coming on the heels of it happening, just 2 weeks ago. The earthquake outside of Sand Point. So yeah, it was basically an inch or two. It was all basically around a foot. They had a foot in I think it was Hokkaido. They had a foot wave that came over the thing. So anyway, I guess bullet dodged on that, but we'll keep you. We'll see which one. We'll see. All right. We've got. We're just going to do it. Let's jump into it. Sorry, I got a little distracted there. Let's get over to the start of the show this morning. Get our calls on, get things rocking and rolling. State Senator Mike Shower joins us to discuss wood ticks, lunatics, and politics. Maybe not in that order. Hello, my friend. How are you doing today?
It's been a couple weeks. I'm doing pretty good. How about you?
You know, it's not bad. It's not bad. It's whew, man, it's been a heck of a couple crazy days here. And of course, we are just merely 3 days away from the call of the governor to set up the special session, or maybe I should say the call of the governor for some folks to stay home. Let's start there. What is the deal with the special session? What's your take? Are you going, or are you waiting, or give me the rundown here, Mike. What's going on?
Well, it's from everything I have available to me at the moment. The governor's not going to pull it. There was some conversation of pulling the special session, but I think that sounds like the both Democrat-controlled majorities were concerned, or I guess they didn't want to go initially, but apparently now if the governor was going to pull it, then they were going to get the votes and the commitments and call themselves into special session to override the vetoes. So there's this whole back and forth thing that kind of started bouncing around from the call. So that's part one. So it looks like we're at a minimum. There's going to be the gavel in around 10 o'clock on Saturday down in Juneau. Whoever's there is there. And then they're going to call for veto override votes on the $200 line item veto for the BSA, which will be close. We will see if that passes or not. And then they're going to bring up that audit bill that the governor vetoed that, in theory, I'm for the transparency and making sure that things are done correct, but how it played out and what they're doing and some of the maneuvering, if you will, to pass the bill did not sit well with me, which is why I support his veto. There's a better process. And what this really came down to is a lot of personalities, and again, Democrat-controlled majority wanting to kind of stick it to the governor. And I'm not saying there shouldn't be the transparency in the audits. It was kind of how it played out was my problem with that. So that one maybe has less of a chance of being overridden. I think the minorities will probably be like, yeah, no, we're not playing that game. We'll see. But that's kind of it. I think most people are going down. I will not be there, but that's because of my other job. I burned all of my vacation and sick time to make sure I was there for the whole 4 months of the session. And then when you call these things, my work schedule is already set. I have nothing I can do about that. And I think there's a handful of others that have commitments already, because by the time the special call is announced, you don't, sometimes it's hard to change those things, obviously. So, but I think from what I understand, most people are going to be there, minorities and majorities. And then so we'll see where the votes go. It's kind of where it sits right now.
Yeah, I mean, I want to break down some of the things you're talking about, especially the audit bill and things like that. I want to get a little bit deeper into that, but let's talk about the optics and the political maneuvering of calling the special session. When it happened, I'll be honest, I wasn't expecting it. I thought, okay, here we go. Nobody's going to want to do. But then after he did it, and I started thinking about it, I thought, well, it's kind of a brilliant move, because even if he gets overridden, the override happens, months before the regular session. If it took place right at the beginning of the session, it could set the tone and give the majorities a chance to drive the narrative that, the governor's being obstructionist or whatever, they're here to save you, but people got a pretty short memory. So if it happens now, and I think people need to remember too, that this veto was a one-time override of only $200 of the BSA increase. They're still getting it for the rest of time, right? They're still getting their $700 until the cows come home and the moon falls from the sky. Yeah. And so this is a one-time $200 per student. This is not the end of the world. But I think that by doing it now, even if he's overwritten, it's still kind of a win-win for him. I mean, am I reading the cards right here? What do you think?
Yeah, I think that was the governor's intent. I mean, obviously he would like to get a little more mileage out of it, but in my conversation with him, because I believe he called all the caucus leaders just to kind of give them an idea, what he was thinking and, what the possibilities was to get it off the table, to get the veto overrides off the table, be done. He was hoping that the minorities, I think, wouldn't show up and allow the 5-day veto clock to run out. And his intent, I think, was not so that the veto stood, because what he told me, he was very crystal clear. He's like, he's wanted the veto clock to run out so that his vetoes were not overridden, but he had every intention, and I believe he's been saying this publicly over the last week or so or whatever, that then the goal would be to negotiate some of the things that we kind of ran the clock out on during the session for policy, and that if we could agree on some policy things and knock it out over the special session, where that's really all we're talking about for the most part, then he would be more than happy to allow the $200 to come back and no problem. So I think, like you said, there was some strategic timing to go, hey, let's get this off the table. Genuine, desire to get it off the table, solve it, but also be able to focus on some of the policy that we fell short on, so that the schools and those that want nothing but the money get the money, and those that want policy get more policy than we had. And then, like you also said, I think that was part of the thinking, was that once we get to January, we can start with essentially a clean slate, avoid the whole veto battle, and just get off to doing business. And so I see the reasoning for what they were doing to try to genuinely take it off the table and work on it. Whether or not the majorities are going to play ball at all doesn't sound like it. Not that that would shock you. I think their goal is to come in, do the overrides, and gavel out and go home. They have no desire, from what I saw at the end of the session, to negotiate on policy whatsoever. So I doubt that the majorities are going to even give it even an ounce of thought to work on any more policy. They just want the money and be done with it. That's
Right.
my impression of it. So.
Well, and I think that's already what they're saying now. So they've quoted Loki Tobin saying again that it's really, she said it was really unlikely that the special session would last more than a single day. Stevens is quoted as talking about this as not really going anywhere. You could be right, but again, in either case, I could see this still in either case as a win for the governor. Because he gets it out of the way now, rather than it being some kind of central focus for when the legislature returns in January. It's a whole new clean slate at that point, and I think that is kind of brilliant in that regard.
No, I think it's wise to get it off the table. I don't disagree at all. I mean, just get them over with, because it always sucks oxygen out of the room. And what are we going to have to deal with? Potentially, the price of oil dropping. So there's going to be budgetary constraints, maybe as bad or worse than what we just dealt with. And yet you have people that are going to be pushing for defined benefits that are going to cost us hundreds of millions or billions of dollars more. We just jacked up education spending. And if you think they're done asking for more, you'd be a fool.
Oh, yeah, no, they've said it outright. They've said it outright. They're coming back for more. They were like, this is a nice start, is basically the paraphrase of the comment. This is a nice start, but you could see they're coming for that $1,800 was the mark that they were shooting for early on.
Yeah. And if the tax revenue available to the state is only shrinking, and that's what we're likely going to be faced with, because the price of oil continues to drop, and it would depend on what the stock market does for the earnings. But they got that one pool of money left we can still draw on for a little bit. What little's left of the earnings, from the permanent fund.
Yeah.
So that's about the only thing left, and I could see them easily blowing through that this year and taking virtually every last penny left. And then there goes the PFD forever, which wouldn't hurt some people's feelings, I'm sure, because they want to spend it on government. So that's kind of where we are. The bottom line is that same battle is going to take place like it is, because these majorities absolutely refuse to take up a comprehensive fiscal policy so we can lock these things down and start planning and executing a smarter long-term strategic vision, and get busy on the things we desperately need, like drilling and mining and logging and building roads and providing strategic assets for not only our allies but our nation. I mean, there's so many things we should be doing, and we did the revolt over green energy and how much the PFD is going to be. And Michael, it's just so, as you and I have been lamenting for years, but it is frustrating to watch. I just posted about it about a day or two ago.
Yeah.
I think it was Arizona or one state, I forget. It might have been Arizona. Don't quote me on that one, but it was like they just got like a big copper mine thing that they're looking to open up, and I'm just going, we missed the boat again. While you watch another state take advantage of a president and administration that is like, go gangbusters. China's locking down the resources out there, and we desperately need them, as do our allies. So let's start building and digging and drilling. And everybody else like, we're in. And I'm up here last week going, what about us? And we don't. It's just frustrating. And yes, there's movement on the pipeline. You're like, LNG, I get it.
Yeah.
Movement, maybe building West Pacific Access and getting some things. We're finally getting some momentum, but it's not enough. It's not fast enough, and it's not enough at this point. We should have been doing this years ago. So again, all of these headwinds we face, right? We still have fiscal constraints. We've got issues. We won't put our house in order. We have these other things we should be working on. We're going to be arguing and complaining and debating over the cost of education and spending more money on that and defined benefits. Well, Michael, we shouldn't be worried about any of that because that should be locked away.
Yeah.
We should be debating how we're going to open up, West Assitna access and coal and antimony and copper and oil and gas. That's what we should be doing is, focusing on policy that's going to boom this state, and we're not. So, yeah.
State Senator Mike Shower is our guest. We're going to continue on this discussion here in just a moment. Don't go anywhere. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. We will be back with more right after this. Don't go anywhere.
Running on 100% pure beard power. Oh, also some coffee. We dip our beard in coffee.
Nice beard.
The Michael Duke Show.
Okay, we're in the break right now. State Senator Mike Shower joins us to discuss pretty much anything and everything. So, Mike, what's happened after this this last session? Has it just been all work and no play makes Mike a dull boy? What's going on?
Yeah, for me it has been. I mean, like I said, I blew off so much of my primary job, my earning job. So I've been working every week. I'm working right now on that, doing the other job, but that's been pretty busy. And it was, to be fair, it was pretty quiet. There wasn't really a whole lot on the Alaska legislative side of things. It's been, everybody was pretty tired, of course, as they are. And everybody kind of ran home and they're doing all their stuff, right? So, and there's not a whole lot of us that have jobs outside of being a politician in Juneau anyway. So, yeah, for me, it was yard work and catching up on all the stuff and a new chicken coop Michelle wanted built. And then it's like just, all that stuff and then being gone every week working, just busy. Yeah, that's just a lot going on. And then when the special session came, like, I can't do that.
Right.
I can't take it. I can't manipulate my schedule. So, it is what it is, especially if it's one day. I'm like, well, I'm going to miss that.
Yeah,
yeah, just busy.
Yeah, I'm not going to rearrange my entire life if everybody's saying it's going to be one day. That makes no sense whatsoever.
Yeah. I mean, I'd love to go. I'd be there, do the job, right? But it's like when the way the scheduling works in the airline world, a month ahead, I can't manipulate it that fast, like I said. So, it is what it is, but
yeah,
not like it matters because it wasn't like I was going to override the governor for any of the stuff that's going to happen anyway. So
right.
The good news, I guess, for me, in one sense, is not being there counts as that no vote. So still supporting, not overriding the governor, which I wasn't going to do even if
Mike, what's now maybe it's a little unfair to ask, but because of your constituency and your reputation, but what's been the reaction to all the vetoes and the end of the session from your constituency? I mean, are they supportive? Are they angry that the governor vetoed it? I mean, what's been the general from your perspective of, I guess your constituency, because I'm sure that there's some out there that maybe have chastised you. But what's your take on it?
No, haven't really heard any negatives. The only thing I'm getting, which are frustrating in one sense, because I don't generally respond when you start getting the form letters. If somebody takes the time to write a genuine letter, I will try to respond with something to them, unless they're, from some far-flung, not a constituent, because there's only so much time, right? But constituents, if they have a genuine letter and concern, I will try to at least write something back. Often call if I can because that's easier. But only thing I'm really getting about that is just the standard NEA union form letters again and again and again. The same one, right? So you pretty much blow those off because you get sick and tired of hearing the form letters. I'm like, no, if you have an issue, then write something about it. Don't just click a little thing that says, here, put your name on this and click what the NEA tells you to say. I've seen a bunch of those that are like, you need to support education funding. The kids are all going to get kicked out of school. I mean, it's that kind of thing. So it's all the fear mongering. And I ain't got time for that. So I'm not messing with that. But that's really, honestly, from looking at the emails, from work if I'm assuming that's where it's coming from. not really seeing much other than the form letters.
Hmm.
Without
Well,
his vetoes.
yeah, and that
the other thing, the audit one, what is it? They don't even know what it is.
right. Well, and that raises a whole nother question about, things that like Kevin McCabe has been talking about, the education industrial complex that we've discussed on the show here, that they seem to be in a lot of ways running the show over this whole debate on education funding.
Oh yeah, totally running the show. NEA, AFT, they're 100% the ones behind everything that's happening with this, and they're what's the right word? They're I was gonna say they're legislators, they're lobbyists, or in some ways are some of the legislators for the NEA. Yeah, they're totally running that show, Michael. There's no question in that place.
I think you may
We're a
have,
union controlled state. We're a union controlled
Yeah.
state government, and they wield immense power here per capita. And you can see it so clear when you're down there.
Yeah.
And all the lobbyists are running around. So, it just, that's the reality of the landscape. You can say what you want about it, but
Yeah.
they have a lot of money and power, and they send their people down when the average citizen can't afford to go to Juneau, because we have a legislative session that's cost you $1,000 to go see your legislator.
All right.
During session.
Here we go. We're about to rejoin. You may have struck a nerve there. Some of the legislators are lobbying. Anyway, we're going to continue here. Don't go anywhere. The Michael Duke Show. Please like and share, like and follow, subscribe, ring the bell. Let's do it.
Public enema number one. Oh, wait, sorry. Public enemy number one, which makes more sense. On the other hand, he's a little bit of a pain in the Michael Duke Show.
I am not. I'm a perfect angel. Just ask State Senator Mike Shower. He'll tell you. Perfect angel.
Little wings and everything.
Yeah, wings, halo, the whole schmear, man. I got it all. You said it during the last segment, Mike. You were talking about it. There's only one more pot of money for them to draw off of, and they're already setting up the battle lines for the next session. And of course, we know they're not done with education. They want more, MOAR, more. They want more. The $700, that was a nice start, essentially, to paraphrase them. And so we know they're coming back for that. We know that defined benefits is still on their Christmas wish list, so they want that as well. The problem is we're coming into this next year with a potential prescribed deficit of somewhere around $1.5 billion. And so I have been arguing that, as you had just said, there's only one readily available pot of money out there. And that is, of course, the earnings of the permanent fund dividend source, which means it's very likely that this dividend that we're receiving in October will be the last dividend that we see. What do you say?
It's entirely within the realm of possibility that this is the last dividend of any measure that we may see. There may be some small, depending on what they spend, depending on what passes, depending on what the governor may do, because he could still come back this session and veto a defined benefit plan and other things. I mean, there's still lots of game to be played. But that said, that's the path we're on, Michael. I mean, they started this, statutory. I put in a statutory PFD every year. Always gets voted down, except for that one a couple of years ago in 22. And then put in the 50-50, gets voted down. People, there's a couple Democrats, at least 2 or 3 of them, that were staunch supporters of the PFD until they've been in the majority, and then they voted against it every single year since then. So really, were they supporting the PFD? Or could they because they were in the minority and they could freely vote for it, right? It's an easy vote when you're in the minority because it doesn't count. So, but when you look at it now, we're, at the start of this year, the finance co-chairs, and I believe they were genuine in trying to get it, but the education funding just took off and they couldn't control that based on the numbers, to do a 75-25. And that was going to be about a $1,400 PFD, roughly, as I remember. And then now it's down to, what was it, about a 86-14, about $1,000 PFD.
Yeah.
So we're going from
the smallest PFD ever. The smallest PFD ever when adjusted for inflation. Yeah, it's this.
Inflation.
Yeah.
So what's it going to be this year? 98.55, 98.2. I don't know, Michael, but the trajectory is crystal clear that they are going to take every penny they can that is coming into this state government, and they're going to spend it on state government. Their desire to give any of that money to the citizens or to embolden and power up the private sector does not cross the minds of most of the legislators. Not all. There's certainly plenty that see the balance and support the private sector out of it. But when you look at the two Democrat-controlled majorities, the vast majority of everybody in those two bodies in the House and the Senate and the Democrat-controlled majorities want to take all of the money they can get their hands on, including the PFD, and spend it on government. That's their primary constituency, Michael. It is. It's the left. That's big government. They want it, right? It is the unions that want defined benefits and more money for education, big union, etc. That's where they're going to focus the money. So that's just the reality of what you're looking at, folks. The bottom line is the writing is on the wall. As long as we have, some Republicans that are empowering those Democrats, so the Democrats are going to take that money and use it on the state. That's the path we're on. We don't have enough people joining together to form majorities in both bodies that would protect the PFD. We don't. So you can like it or not, but those are the numbers. And I think at this point, like I said, this year, maybe the next 2-3 years, depending on how things play out, you're probably looking at the end of the era of the PFD in Alaska. Would be the only thing that's going to offset it, Michael, is if the stock market booms and the permanent fund itself grows. You could see some pressure being taken off of taking all of it. But if oil tanks and the stock market doesn't really take off, we don't have any other mechanism.
Right.
Remember what I said in the first segment about we're not drilling, we're not digging, we're not doing all the things that this state has to do to create economic growth in the private sector to get tax money to fill those coffers for all those programs. We're not doing those things. And since we have not been doing them, there is no other money coming in to spend, but they're going to spend it anyways. With every penny they can get their hands on. That's just
they could of course balance this stuff with also some austerity, with some cutting. But again, there's no political. I mean, don't laugh at me because there's no political will to do any of that, right?
Well, we tried that in 2019. How'd that go? They ran a recall against the governor, not because of anything he did. They ran it because he cut the budget too much, right? And then we came back and essentially over the next, the rest of that session, they essentially re-added pretty much everything back in that had been cut out. And almost all of it got added back in, and we voted over that as well. Got outnumbered. That's when there was a Republican majority in the Senate. Of course, every year, and I do remind people of this. It's one thing you have to remember. Every year I have been here, except the last now 3 years, so the first 5, there was always either a Republican majority in the House or the Senate. But that means that the other body was controlled by Democrats because a couple Republicans joined the Democrats, a standard Alaska thing. So there has never been, even though there is a majority of Republicans in both bodies, there has never been a year since Dunleavy has been governor or since I've been there where there was a Republican governor with a Republican majority in the House and the Senate where we might be able to move and do some things. We have never had that. And in fact, It's gone the other way the last 3 years with the 2 Democrat-controlled bodies with a Republican majority of members, at least. So, look, man, Democrats are tax and spend, Michael, and that's what these bodies, regardless of what they say, that's what they are.
There's plenty. This is not just a Democrat problem. There's plenty of Republicans that are tax and spend as well. As you said, we've continued to spend ourselves into oblivion, and half the time, one of the bodies has been run by Republicans. So this is not simply a Democrat versus Republican issue. This is a big government versus small government issue, and that's what we have. We have a difference in philosophy, not in party, in this state. It seems to be. I want to talk a little bit about the secondary bill that's going to be that the Democrats or the majorities are going to attempt to override. And that is this bill about auditing the oil companies. Now, this is getting down into some of the minutia and some of the weeds, and people are probably not really paying attention to this. But, how much of this is just tall man bad syndrome, and how much of this is, I don't know if it's games being played or positioning being done by the Dunleavy administration, because there were some audits. They called for the data. They got the data, but they didn't get the data in the way that, one, they normally do, and two, the way they like. And so that's what the fuss is about, because the Department of Revenue said, well, we'll give you the raw data, but we're not going to do the summaries that we used to do, et cetera, et cetera. What's going on with this bill? Can you give us a little bit of a roundy round on this?
Yeah, so the way this is playing out, there's definitely some DDS. There's no doubt, right? I mean, there's plenty of that to go around in Juneau with the legislature, but just a different version of TDS. However, it is important, right, that the legislature have the ability to audit the executive branch within its authority, so that those of us that hold the purse strings can make sure that we are funding appropriately, that the money is being spent appropriately, that things like lawsuits or fees and fines, if you will, are being paid appropriately because they've dropped off. I know you've probably read about that since there's been the current commissioner in DNR. So there are things that we have a responsibility to do. That's okay. No problem with that. That's the transparency. That's the ability for the legislature to do its job. But you also see the other side of this, how they're playing out with kind of the DDS and some people that have a bone, or I guess a better way to say it, an axe to grind with the governor and maybe some of his people. And, this kind of gets into, well, now you're going to turn this over so they can basically require, you're going to get to the point, Michael, where they're going to say the legislature is going to subpoena a commissioner, get in front of you and answer questions. And we want everything, and we want all the books, and we're going to be able to open them. And they're going to say, oh, that's not really what we're going to do. But see, that's the fallacy of the argument, Michael. It's like the foot in the door, the camel's nose, right, under the flap of the tent till he's all the way in. They want a little bit now is what they're saying, but the reality is they want to be able to open up the books and then request everything and basically go after all the executive branch. So you're going to put them on notice where I guess I would say it's almost akin to going, basically it's legislative usurping authority from the executive branch, because they're going to be able to request all this data and open up all the books. And like you said, the oil companies and all kinds of stuff that they're going to swear up and down they're not doing. But if you don't think they have intent beyond that, you would be a fool again to trust them that that's not what they're ultimately going to do. I talked to somebody that was in Ways and Means before, and that person gave me a great debrief on what's really going on behind the scenes. And I'm not going to get into that to kind of, protect the innocent, if you will, but just understand that there is more to this than meets the eye with what is taking place. And so the process of how this is being done and where this ultimately leads is why I don't agree with how it's playing out. I think it's appropriate to say, look, if we ask for the data, you should give it to us in the appropriate format, follow the law, no problem with that. But this is going to go beyond that, Michael. Next thing you know, you're going to have. So I would ask this question. What if we passed a bill, the governor was passing a bill that said that his commissioners could come in and audit all of our committees? We want to know that you're doing your committees correctly. And we want to know that the legislature is spending its money, its own budget. We're going to audit that. But the legislature, you separation of powers. They would be very upset about that. But you notice how there's no upsetness, if you will, if that's even a word, about digging into everything that's happening in the executive branch, right? And the way that they want to do it. I'll leave it at that. It's a little bit darker than people are saying. There is a good side to this of the transparency and the audit and the legislature having the authority and responsibility to do its job, but it goes a little deeper than that. And that's where my problem lies in this. And like I said, I'm going to protect the identities of people that have told me a lot more about what really was playing out with this. Because when it first came up, I'm like, well, what the heck is this about? You kind of an audit bill? What? Everybody, it's one of those dry topics that everybody kind of blows off.
Right.
And maybe you get the debrief, you go, ooh, okay, I see what they're up to. And it's not a good thing, in my opinion, from what I've been told. So that's where I'm at on that. We'll see what happens.
State Senator Mike Shower is our guest. We're coming up to the final break here. We got more coming up. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back. On the other side, of course, the big news is the gubernatorial race. Upwards of 9 potential participants on the Republican side right now. We'll talk about that with State Senator Mike Shower in just a moment. We'll return. Common sense, liberty-based. Free Thinking Radio. Back with more right after this.
listened to by more staffers in Juneau than any other show because their bosses told them to. And after what they just heard, oh man, they're going to be pissed.
You're a bad, bad man.
The Michael Duke Show.
Okay, State Senator Mike Shower is our guest as we continue. Kevin says, you didn't mean Ways and Means, you meant LB&A, right? Legislative Budget and Audit Committee.
Well, yeah, I call it that because I know that's really, well, yes and no.
Yes and no.
I'll just leave it at that. Yes and no.
Yes
I'm going to answer
yes
that
and no.
very
Okay.
vaguely.
Names have been changed to protect the innocent, is what you're saying. Yes and
Yes.
no.
Several conversations with people much more knowledgeable about the workings of that than I ever was dealing with it. And
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, again,
Yeah,
it seems to be, in part, and I don't think the governor's has done himself any favors over the last 4 years. I mean, it's been 3 years since the governor's been on the program. He said he would come on. Every time I try and reach out, I get rebuffed. He has an opportunity to go directly to the public with Facebook. He has not taken advantage of that. I mean, there's been a lot of things that the governor has really, in some ways, hurt himself on. But on top of that, he's got parts of the legislature that just want to dogpile on him for whatever reason, and try and besmirch or make him look bad, or and I think from what I'm reading between the lines here, that this is all about trying to do a setup, because it's all, it's public knowledge that Adam Crum is considering a run for governor, and as commissioner of revenue, he's directly in the sights of this as well. So this seems more like a hit piece against the governor and Crum than anything else at this point, is what it kind of feels like. It feels like kind of a witch hunt.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely some things that need to be looked at there from some of the data that's floating around, but it is not my job. It is not my area of expertise of the things that people are talking about, the irregularities and other things that happen. Look, if there's issues, then they need to be investigated and resolved in whatever format is appropriate. And so there's some things, like I said, that's why I said I'm not opposed to the bill in the concept of ensuring that the legislature can get the reports as it needs them to do its job. I was opposing it for those other reasons that I illuminated without repeating them. And that's what bothers me. It's a little more, like you said, I'm not going to use the word witch hunt, but like you said, maybe it's a little bit, maybe setup is a better word. It's a little more of a setup about it. And from what I have talking to people behind the closed door, I have concerns that this bill, if it was a Democrat governor, they would never be doing it, number one. And number two, they would take a very soft approach. It'd be quiet, it would be a whole different thing. So the hatred of Dunleavy by certain legislators that is just unnatural is certainly a part of it. But that's politics, Michael. There are very mean people in this business, and that just is what it is. I mean, look at the majority leader. There's a majority leader in the Senate that won't even talk to me, won't acknowledge my presence, and I'm the minority leader. How am I supposed to do my job? I've looked at the Senate president and go, Gary, how am I supposed to work like this? The person 7 feet away from me won't even look at me.
Right.
So when you talk about personalities and what we're dealing with there and how people are, actually operating and governing, it can be incredibly frustrating, because that's the kind of, things that you're dealing with and going, what are we doing here?
Right.
We have important things that we need to get done. And people are so just sigh sometimes. So
I think the more I hear about this, the more it all harkens back to I was going to say high school, but it's not even high school. It's more junior high. It just feels like kids on the playground. I'm mad at him. I'm mad at her. I don't like him. I don't like her. I'm just going to, I'm going to take my ball and bat and go over here. And we're just going to ignore him. It seems juvenile in so many ways.
It's unfortunate.
Yeah.
Because there's too many things that are important that we need to be doing for our future. And there's a lot of petty politics being played and a lot of petty personality things. And that's reality. That's life. I understand that. But it is frustrating when you, myself, and others look at all the things that we need to be dealing with, and we're not doing those. And we're focused on all these other things. And that is something that is just unconscionable to me, because we have so many things that are important that we need to be doing, and we're not. And
Yeah.
whether it's hatred of the governor, whether it is petty politics on your own personal agenda or somebody you don't like, it should be irrelevant because we're supposed to be grown-ups and we have a job to do. It doesn't matter if you hate somebody from 2 years ago or 5 years ago, or somebody said this or did this 5 or 6 years ago, whatever. Michael, it shouldn't matter. We should be moving on and doing our job. And unfortunately, there's a lot of things that seem, there's some long memories here in politics, and people just don't seem to let things go to move on. And it hampers our ability to do the job we're supposed to do. And that is frustrating.
Well, and what's frustrating for many of us on the outside looking in is the fact is that this is across party lines. I mean, I said it earlier, this is not a Republican or Democrat problem. This is a big government versus a small government problem. And that, I think, is what's most disconcerting to most people, is because they expect a certain bent out of their, out of folks who have a R next to their name or a D next to their name. And it's getting real confusing in there. It's getting real conflated. All right, we're 10 seconds out. We're about ready to join back into this. Here we go. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Again, like and share, follow, ring the bell, subscribe, do all that stuff. Let's get to it.
The Michael Duke Show. Not your daddy. Wait, sorry. Not your daddy? Ooh, not your daddy's talk radio. Whew. I was scared for a second. Thought we were going down. Here's Michael Dukes and the show.
Okay, we're back. State Senator Mike Shower is our guest. And we're into one final segment here. Mike, the state of Alaska has one of the strongest executives in the country as far as the power of the governor. And I've often said it, that what we really need in this state and what we have been lacking, I mean, I like Mike as a person, but I mean, what we've really been lacking is some strong leadership, some direction, some hands-on kind of leadership. Now the governor's termed out. Obviously, things are heating up in the governor's race already. Thanks to ranked choice voting, we've got the big jungle primary thing happening, and now we're going to have I get up to 9. Shelley Hughes just announced as the gubernatorial candidate here this last Thursday or Friday. So now she's 7. Adam Crum has resigned. And he's like, announcement on the 8th, which, everybody is basically, it's a not so secret that he's going to run. And then there's rumors that Treg Taylor was going to run as well. That'll make it 9 on the Republican side. We have one Democrat that has filed, and I can't remember the name now, but it's somebody who I've never heard of in Fairbanks, in the Fairbanks area, if I remember correctly, running. So now we'll have 10 candidates for a jungle primary, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, what do you make of this race and overall of what's happening here? Give me your thoughts.
Well, the first thing you got to think about the Democrat ticket. I'll be interesting to see what Bishop does, because he's going to have a lot of union support and money. There's going to be no doubt about that. That's going to be their preferred guy. And Click, I like Click. I'm friends with him. However, that's going to be honestly more of your Democrat ticket, because Click's positions are going to be moderate at best, and depending on who he picks for lieutenant governor, that's what I'm really watching to see. It could be a left of center ticket. That may be the Democrat ticket at the top, in a manner of speaking. So we'll have to wait and see on that one. But outside of that other Democrat, like I said, is unknown, and whatever. Maybe they join governor, lieutenant governor ticket. I mean, who knows it, right? I mean, there's still some things to see where the puzzle pieces fall. I will tell you this for all the Republican side of stuff, and I have asked 2 specific candidates, but I won't say their name. Yet at least. My question to all of them that everybody should be asking them is that if you get into the race, that's fine. Up to the primary, the jungle primary, throw your name in the hat, give it your best shot. May the best man or woman win. I'm totally cool with that, right? Because we have this big system. But as we learned in the last election cycle, we can still win with ranked choice voting. But everybody should be answering the question, because if you're not the number 1 actual Republican ticket, and that's why I said Democrat, the Bishop team, whatever, then the actual Republican is the top one, whoever that is. If that ticket, everybody below that ticket is not willing to very quickly and honestly and forthrightly answer the question, if I'm not number 1, I'm out, then I would be opposing them wildly. I don't care who they are. If they are going to stay in the race and split the ticket, and we're going to have at least what 2 or 3 Republicans, on the ticket, splitting it, and then giving ourselves another Mary Patola, another moderate ticket, then that is an unacceptable answer. I would support anybody throwing their name in the hat. That's fine. That's the system as it is, to see who percolates to the top. But once that very expensive taxpayer-funded poll is done in August, and we see the rack and stack on those 4, I'm going to be looking at the names out there and go, you said if you were number 4, you're out. You said if you were number 3 and the other 2, then you're out. And that's my biggest point, Michael. The general primary is what it is, so let it play out. But the Republicans should all be asking the Republican candidates for governor, when if you're not the top vote getter, when that's over, you're getting out, right? And you're going to tell all your people to support the number 1 candidate so we get an actual Republican administration, right?
Right.
That's the seminal question right now, Michael. It's not so much all the people that are in it, because most of them are going to fall out. The question is those that percolate to the top and then can get the donations and the money and the momentum and all of that stuff to support are going to end up with just one candidate, right? Because if we don't do that, then we will shoot ourselves in the foot. And we are infamous for nothing if it's not circling the wagons and shooting at each other. So my only real question, I'm going to be very draconian about it, is that whoever's in the race, once that jungle primary is over, we better have some lock solid agreements. And the people, the party, those that are supporting them, whoever they are, I'll be looking at them going, well, here's the deal. If you don't make it to the top, my friends, then you need to be bowing out and getting all your support behind the other person, because that means it's not about you.
Right.
That means you're doing it for the right thing. If you won't bow out, which I've already heard Bishop said he won't, which is back to the whole question, then you're not really doing it for the right reasons.
Right.
You're doing it for yourself. You're doing it for whatever. And so that's where I'm really going to be interested to see how this plays out with the different people and what their positions are, and asking those questions. Look, you're a journalist in a way, right? You should be asking those questions, those that are willing to come on. And I hope that everybody else out there is doing the same thing. That's where I'll kind of end with that one.
Yeah, no, I mean, we've already asked that question. That was one of the first questions we asked Bernadette Wilson when she was on the program. She agreed. She said she'd made that commitment already. I understand that we're going to ask Shelley here, but I understand Shelley already made that commitment and comment earlier. We know that Nancy Dahlstrom did it last go round because she bowed out in the Begich-Peltola race. And so we know that there's at least 2, maybe 3 out of 7 that will do it. But you're right. That's a good marker and a good question. Are they in it for the state, or are they in it for personal glory? Because they just, that's what it's going to come down to. And I agree with your analysis on Click Bishop, because I think that's one of the reasons why we haven't seen more buzz about Peltola potentially coming into the race, because maybe the Democrats already feel that they've got their candidate. Maybe they feel that they've got somebody they can support. And you're right. If he picks a lieutenant governor candidate that is more left of center than he is, then they may have their dream team already. And so that might be what we're looking at here, which, again, we saw how that worked out with Walker. We saw how that worked out when we had a supposed independent and a Democratic mixed ticket that came out. And that's how we ended up with no PFD and all this optional Medicaid and everything else, and many other problems. So this is going to be a very interesting race for the outcome of the state of Alaska. And again, we need a strong leader in this case. Am I wrong?
Nope, you're right, of course, and that's why I said I'll have more to talk about Click. Like I said, I'm not going to do the personal attack thing on, like I said, that person's a terrible person. I hate that we do that, even with ones I disagree. But I will talk all day long about policy and position. And I'm here to tell you, I mean, Click is the one that stopped. He was the one in charge of bills. He's the one that stopped the first big election integrity bill I had. So if you're a Republican or you're moderate or right of center wants the election integrity, he stopped it. I can tell you that right now, flat out. He supports defined benefits, so it's going to be more money. He's going to support the unions and getting more money for the school system that we talked about. Click voted against the PFD. So, I mean, this is like you're looking at one person and one ticket. That's what you're going to get. And anybody that he's probably going to pick is going to be like that or even further to the left. So that's what I'm saying. The choices are going to become more clear as we get to these people and look at the records and be able to talk about it. And that's what we should be talking about, right? We shouldn't be lambasting people or, sticking a knife in their back, but we should be talking about
Well, the
what
policy,
have they done?
yeah. The
Yeah, what
policies
have
are
they
fair
done if
game.
they have a record
Right.
does, and others do. And
yeah, this shouldn't be about character or people. It shouldn't be about personalities. It should be about policies and character, right? And that's what the whole thing should be about. And so
you said not character. I'm like, oh no, let's talk about character. Character matters depending on what it is.
Yeah, no. I mean, I misspoke. I misspoke for sure. We should be talking about, the policies and the character are important. Personalities, we're not here to throw anybody under the bus. I'm sure that they're lovely people in their own way. But again, we can vehemently disagree with the policy, and that's what we should be talking about. Again,
you're going to have PAC, and you're going to have IEs that are going to be doing all the nasty work anyway. So we don't really need to support any more of that. There's going to be plenty of nasty, mudslinging and name calling and sticking knives in people's backs. So that's going to happen anyways. But we should really be focused, Michael, on the right thing, especially on the Republican side. We need to be focused on policies. Things like important questions like, will you get out? Will you drop out and get all your people to support if you're not number one? What are you going to do on a sustained, stable fiscal policy for the state? What's your thoughts on, election integrity? What's your thoughts on, drilling and all those things? Those are the things where we should be focused on that matter, because that's what we want to see. Because as you and I have seen many times, people campaign one way, and they go to Juneau and they govern another. And it is incredibly frustrating for me being there, banging your head against the wall. And I know it's just as frustrating for you and the people listening, because you're like, but wait a minute, you said you were going to do X and you go down there and do Y.
Right.
And then you ask why all day long. And it's just hard. It's hard to trust. And I get it.
One of the biggest questions that we're going to be asking every candidate is, how do you pay for it all? That's the question. That's the million or $1 billion question. With a $1.5 billion projected deficit, how are you going to pay for all this? And I think that is going to be one of the most important things. And as you mentioned, a long-term fiscal plan. What is the long-term fiscal plan? Do we have one? And where do we go from here? All right, Mike Shower, our guest. Thank you so much for coming on board, my friend. We appreciate it. We look forward to seeing you back here, and keep us in the loop if you hear anything new.
Will do, my friend. It's always good to be on. You guys take care.
Thanks so much for coming on board. Hold the line for just a second. All right, folks, we're out of time. We got to go. Hour 2 dead ahead. Gubernatorial candidate Shelley Hughes up next. Okay. I'll give you a final bite here, Mike. Any final thoughts here as we get ready to wrap and we're bringing Shelley on, or anything else? What are you thinking?
I think Shelley will answer that question very pointedly on getting out. I'm sure that she will. I have no doubt. She's good that way. She'll be solid. So, and Shelley and I agree on all the issues. So I'm sure it's going to be great. But no, I think that's the biggest thing, Michael. We start to focus away from this last session. Hopefully, Governor Dunleavy will hold the line on vetoes and spending that we can't afford, and we'll see where that goes as we get into the campaign season. And then it's really going to be about what's the next legislative session look like. I will say this one thing before we finish. There's going to be some pretty titanic shifts in the balance of power inside the Senate. With Hoffman and Stevens gone, and then Bishop left before, all the old power players minus Burt Stedman are pretty much gone out of the Senate. And you're seeing some other players leave as things shuffle out. So, the House is the House, and there will always be some change there. But you're going to see, I think, some titanic shifting inside the Senate. And if we can figure out a way to get the Senate back under Republican control, and we can have the right gubernatorial ticket of a strong leadership team that goes to Juneau from the executive branch side, I don't know, Michael. I mean, we might have a chance with a Trump administration for the next 2 years, because that's really the window we have to make a lot of progress. And so I do think we're at a very seminal time in Alaska's history to make a lot of advances here, but it really is going to depend on how the puzzle pieces fall out here by next November. We'll see, but it's going to be. I honestly think if we don't take advantage of it now, depending on what happens in the federal government, the next administration, this may be the last window we have to really open things up. So I'm very interested in where this goes.
Yeah,
and we'll do my best to work as hard as I can, just like I know you're going to do. But I think we got a great opportunity. I'm just hoping we don't squander it.
Yeah, no, I mean, I look at what's happening with the people who are leaving, and I wonder, is there an opportunity here, or is that vacuum going to be filled up by some of the secondary players who are already there? Is there an opportunity? Can we make those changes? Can we get the groundswell? We see that Stutz wants to move over to the Senate to take Stevens' seat. We know that would be more of the same. Is there another candidate that could come in and make some of those changes? Hoffman, or et cetera, et cetera. I mean, it is a tumultuous time, and I think there is an opportunity, but it is limited. And as you said, this could be the last window.
And it is, and you're right about both of those things. It is tumultuous, and but like with all things, Michael, in chaos can be opportunity if you look for it and know how to take advantage of it and capture it. So there will be some chaos and there will be change, and we could fail, but at the same time, we can't, we can not really afford to fail. So the thing that we need to be doing is looking through this chaos and the changes and go and try to find those opportunities and grab onto them as fast as we can. There are options. I just hope that we're going to be smart enough and good enough to grab them. We'll just have to see how it goes.
Yeah. All right. Well, we will we'll keeping our ear to the ground and letting and hoping, fingers crossed, I guess, hoping and praying. Work like it depends on us, and pray like it depends on God, I guess. At this point, that's where we're at, hoping we can make some of these changes we need to in the state, because otherwise we get too far down this road, we won't be able to come back. And that's
And
my
where else
fear.
are you going to go, brother? Where else are you going to go, my friend? I don't want to go anywhere else but Alaska. There's nowhere else that appeals to me. So
I'm in it. Yeah, I'm in it to win it at this point. I mean, I'm committed to the long term, at this point, but it's do we thrive, or do we just survive? And I think that's the difference in the long run.
Indeed it is. Indeed it is.
All right, my friend. Well, we appreciate you coming on board. Thank you for sharing with us this morning. We appreciate you calling in.
We'll see you in a couple of weeks. Have fun with Shelley. You guys take care.
All right. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. State Senator Mike Shower, our guest here on the program this morning, as we get ready to jump into this. Shelley Hughes should be joining us here in just a moment or so as we get ready to go. Let me do some shifting here on the screen and get everything all squared away. Good morning. Good morning. How are you guys? Are you ready to you ready to rock and roll here? You ready to just Terry says she says I'm sick of just surviving. I mean, that's the thing. You could survive, you could survive nearly anything. But do you want to survive, or do you want to thrive? And that's where we're at. We need to thrive. And for that, I think that we need some major changes in the legislature, and I think we need a strong governor. I think we need a governor that it can offer us leadership, strong leadership. So we'll see where this goes from here. All right, I'm just double checking to make sure that the link that I sent to Shelley is got the right. Yep, it's the right one. Okay. All right. So we should be seeing Shelley here any second as we get ready to go. I'm looking back through some of the comments here. Jeannie says, "You're not wrong. So many undeclareds." Yep. I'm seeing what else here. The problem is Republicans hating Click so much that they give Peltola the win. Well, again, I don't know if she's going to jump into the race. She may, but I have doubts right now. I have doubts as to whether or not she'd be jumping in on this. Okay. I don't see Shelley quite yet. I'm going to send her a text. Make sure she's got everything she needs. We're going to continue the Michael Duke Show. Common sense, Liberty Base, Free Thinking Radio. We'll be back with more in just a second. Don't go anywhere.
Hey, put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
That was just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show, streaming live across the world.
Yep, live around the world on the internet at michaeldukeshow.com and across the state of Alaska on this, your favorite radio station and or FM translator. Hello, my friends, and good morning. Welcome to hour 2 of the big radio show for this Wednesday, hump day, middle of the week. Looking on the downhill slide towards Firearms Friday. Coming up on the program tomorrow in this hour, we're going to have gubernatorial candidate Edna DeVries is going to be joining us, talking with us. It's starting to, as you can see, starting to line up. Things are starting to get hot and heavy. And here we are just 13 months away from the next primary, and we are we're ready to go. We're starting to see it. And in this hour of the program, Shelley Hughes, state senator and now gubernatorial candidate, is going to join us. The 7th candidate of potentially 9. That's the one we're hearing right now. It's going to be crowded out there. It's a little busy, so we're going to talk with Shelley here in just a second. But tomorrow, Edna DeVries joins us, and then on Friday we're working on some stories and some guests on Friday as well for Firearms Friday. So hopefully we'll have everything all lined up by tomorrow and give you some intel on that as well. All right, so we just finished up. State Senator Mike Shower was with us in hour 1. If you missed it, you can go back and listen to it on the podcast, which is available wherever you find podcasts, including Spotify, etc. Or you can go back and watch it on the replay, which is on Facebook, YouTube, or Rumble. You can watch any of those out there as well. All right, let's get to it. Let's get things started here. And jump in. State Senator Shelley Hughes joins us this morning to talk about her run for governor. It's our first chance to chat since she made the announcement. Let's get things started and see what's going on. Good morning. How are you? Uh-oh, I can't hear you. You're muted. I can't hear you. She's on the screen, but we can't hear. There we go. Now we can hear you. Oh, nope. You were there for a second, and now you've muted yourself again.
You know, there's something weird on my phone. I think it's trying to connect with my phone.
No, I got it. You're good. I can hear you now.
Okay,
so,
I'm coming through.
Yep, you're coming through now. All right, State Senator Shelley Hughes joins us this morning to talk. Hello, Shelley. How are you?
Hey, I am fine. You're right. Things are starting to percolate. 13 months ahead of the August 18th primary, 2026. Woo!
Yeah, no, it's gonna be a marathon to the last moment. So we're getting things in. Shelley, for folks who don't know about you, who you've been a staple in politics in the Mat-Su for a while, and of course you've been around the horn, so to speak, on all these things. But maybe somebody doesn't know who you are. So for folks who are just hearing about Senator Shelley Hughes, who's running for governor, give us a little bit of a thumbnail on yourself here real quick.
We'll do it, Michael. Just want to say I did miss your session with my good friend, Senator Shower, so I'm going to have to go and listen to that. I miss that guy. You know, we're rubbing shoulders the whole time when we're in Juneau, so we don't get to see each other so much during the interim. Yes, I am Shelley Hughes, and I live in Palmer, but I was born in Ohio and came up to Alaska as a teenager, Michael, and I lived in Hoonah. And I lived in a very interesting community, Game Creek, 3 miles by water from Hoonah. And woo, did it. I've got some pop-ups happening, a Zoom pop-up. I don't know why that's popping up, but whatever. We were kind of living off the land. I lived in a cabin with no electricity, no running water. We had our own private school, and where I eventually became a teacher, and just a wonderful experience. And some people that it's been written up in the National Geographic years ago and the Alaska Magazine. And so some people have tried to call it a cult. It was not. It was a wonderful experience. I still stay in touch with all the people. People were free to come and go. But it was a faith-based community. It was people who wanted to just get their children, their families away from some of the not so great influences that children can be exposed to in the world. And it was a safe and very fun place. And I learned a lot. It was very Alaskana. Fishing, eating venison, picking berries, all that kind of stuff. So it was a little bit rough living, but it was a great introduction in beautiful Southeast Alaska to our state. And then I lived after that in Bethel after a brief time out in my husband getting his PA degree. And we were in Bethel where he supervised about 50 health aides in 50 villages. And I worked at the Phillips Alcoholism Treatment Center, was part of the parent pre-share program there. And my oldest started elementary school there at the ME school. Then we were up above. After that, my husband ran a clinic up north of the Arctic Circle in Fort Yukon, and had a great time there, made friends, lived next door to the dentist who ran the Yukon Quest. So we helped with his dogs. We didn't use vehicles. We went, we went to the grocery store in a snow machine. We went to church on a snow machine, and spent a lot of time on the river there in the summertime. And then next, briefly in Fairbanks, we thought we were going to settle there. And less than a half year, there was a great offer down in Seward. So we were down the Kenai Peninsula, Michael, where you are now. And we were there a couple of years. And then an even better opening came up for my husband in Palmer. And that's where we moved in 1990 and have been there, I guess that would be 35 years. So it's been great. I've raised 4 children with my husband. We've been married 47 years. I can hardly believe it. And wow. By the way, I don't have skeletons in my closet. I've had a good marriage. And I'm very proud of my children. I invested quite a bit of my adult young motherhood as a stay-at-home mom. It was one of the best investments that I did. I know not all families can swing doing that, but we roughed it a bit in order to do that, and it was a great investment. So here we are. Fast forward, I've been in the private sector basically. Well, you can start figuring out my age, and I don't mind that. 55 years. The private sector, and then in the House for 4 and 8 in the Senate. And here we are today. And what I bring to the table, well, I'll stop there because that you might have a question about. Interesting
I think that's a good background check. I don't think I've gotten that deep over the years with you to hear about all that. So you've been around the horn, like I said, around the state of Alaska, and you've been working in politics, right? I mean, you've been a representative. You've now been a senator. You've seen how the sausage is made and everything else. What made you take this step from, being a senator into the governorship? What nudged you in that direction to take this step?
Well, being in the legislature, the wheels of government turn slowly, and that can be good, right? Because it keeps bad things from happening very quickly, but it does also make it difficult to get good things through. And so I felt like what I could offer to the state during what I'm calling a rough patch, I could provide both hope and the realization of a lot more of Alaska's potential, while at the same time holding the line on the fiscal side, because I do see that we're roughly 10 years or so ago, we were bringing in roughly about $4 billion more because of high oil prices and the amount of oil flowing through taps. So the fiscal side, you've seen what's happened there. We had Democrat majorities, and they actually had to make reductions, which is rather ironic when they screamed and yelled when Dunleavy tried to do it 8 years ago. But that's where we are. But there's a big push. There are a lot of tax bills, and there's going to be a push to bring that kind of an environment in our state. And I think it would be devastating, because what I'm already noticing, Michael, is we have a brain and brawn drain of our young people. And yet we have projects, very promising projects coming online in the near future, and with a federal administration that we should partner with as much as possible to usher in responsible resource development to speed those projects up. There's going to be a period where it's going to be tight. So it's going to be a tough term. And I will tell you, Michael, even though I've had many people over several years encourage me to step up, I actually did some serious thought, and I actually interviewed with a group who was interviewing different potential candidates. This was prior to my filing, and I had not yet made my decision. And I say it's a tough decision to do it because it's going to be a tough term. I think someone who holds the line, if we can get a Republican in there, they're going to be hit on every side, and I'm going to have to hold the line until these projects come on board, until we can bring more industry, more companies, expand the tax base, and not put the burden on individuals. And Michael, anyone who thinks you can make up, let's say, that $4 billion shortfall, which is more than we actually need for running government, of course, but it would be nice to build for savings. Anyone who thinks that we can make up that $4 billion on taxing businesses, industry, and individuals doesn't understand. That would be so burdensome. We would drive families out of state. Businesses would choose other options in their portfolios, not in Alaska. So it will be, I think it'll be a tough, but I think there's a lot of promise. And I'd love to talk to you about that, but I have the tendency to talk without pausing to let you respond. So I'll stop.
That's okay. I'll interrupt you anytime that I need to interrupt you. But, you're making a valid point. I think this is tough times. I mean, anybody, and we've been talking about this in the program for a year and a half, looking at the governor's 10-year forecast, we could see that tough times were ahead. And again, it seemed like it was a shock, I tell you, to many legislators this year, when all of a sudden they realized that there was going to be a deficit. And then next year, there's going to be an even larger deficit, potentially up to $1.5 billion in deficit. And so while, they could see this, again, this 10-year forecast comes out all the time. I mean, it's twice a year, right? You're seeing it come out. Why is it? Yes, it's going to be a tough, I'm just, basically backing you up. This is going to be a tough situation. Are you willing, and are you, do you feel like you have the leadership potential to, if you need to be able to go in there, make those hard choices and live with the consequences? And what I mean by that is, would you be willing to go in there and make the choices that could make you potentially a one-term governor? Whether we're talking about austerity, whether we're talking about, other hard choices in how things go on, are you willing to go in there and make those trade-offs to say, I know this is an unpopular decision, but it has to be done for the fiscal certainty of the state?
And when I say I'm willing to hold the line, that's what it means, Michael. One of the things that there actually has been interest in the legislature, not enough to move it, of course, because I'm a minority member at this current point, but the Sunset Commission concept. I know we've talked about that on your show. And to me, that is part of what needs to happen in the long term, because you could get, and along with a fiscal plan, of course, because you could have one governor come in and hold the line, and the next governor, you're right back in the same boat. So we need something that sends a whole kind of a comprehensive fiscal plan that will hold the line in the long term and ensure increased prosperity for, not only beginning now, but into the future. And so the Sunset Commission is a big part of that. And so, you have to work with the legislature. We know that. I'm hoping we can take back the House. The Senate's going to be a little more difficult. So we aren't going to have a legislature for the next governor that's going to rubber stamp what the governor wants. It's going to be tough. But one of the things, Michael, that I bring to the table is a skill set that involves consensus building. without forsaking my values. And I've done that repeatedly. And when I look back at the things I have achieved in the legislature, as conservative as I am, everything that I have presented and worked on that's been a major achievement has involved working across the political spectrum. Again, I don't forsake my values and principles, but I find those points of consensus, those points of agreement, and you move forward on those. And that's what it's going to involve. I have good relationships with legislators. There's not a legislator that I wouldn't welcome into my office or that would welcome me into into their office currently. So I would, I know there's separate branches of government, but I would be working, I would be in Juneau during the session so that we could work together to get the things through that are important for Alaska. The other thing, Michael, that I would do
before you get into the second thing, I'm going to hold you right there. Don't get into the second thing. Hold that thought. Remember what it was you were talking about. We're going to come back. State Senator Shelley Hughes is our guest, candidate for governor. We're going to continue here in just a moment. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. We'll return in just a moment. Don't go anywhere.
Running on 100% pure beard power. Oh, also some coffee. We dip our beard in coffee.
Nice beard.
The Michael Duke Show.
Okay, Shelley Hughes continues with us as our guest. I'm going to go back here in the chat room real quick and see what's going on. I mean, you talk about a brain drain and a brawn drain. And as a business owner, I mean, I could tell you that that's one of the things that we're constantly working. We're constantly worried about what government is doing because of the way it affects us in various different ways, let alone on the actual economy itself. And it seems like the legislature over the years has ignored, in fact, Ben Carpenter and I have talked about this, and Rob Myers and I have talked about this, that there's a disconnect between the public and the private economy, where they don't seem to care what happens in the private economy because it doesn't really offer them anything. They're not taking tax dollars out of it. They're not doing so. If it fails, great. If not, great. As long as the government economy is covered, they seem to be okay. And that's problematic for us because that's one of the reasons why we're seeing a drop in entrepreneurship and an exodus of people from the state. Working age people from the state are leaving. I mean, that's a huge problem here. We've got to be paying attention to what's going on in the private sector. And I don't know how to get the legislature to pay attention to that at this point.
Well, and in this past session, Michael, this whole last year, as I stepped back, I realized there was the major priorities of the majority were all to support the public sector. There was a huge focus on the public sector. Think about it, what their priorities were: reinstating defined benefits, education dollars to the districts. Those were the big things. What was there a priority that was focused on the private sector? Not really. And that needs to shift. Yes, we need good state workers who work efficiently and effectively. And we want great teachers, but when we're more concerned about these public systems and less about the private sector, it's problematic. And we're unbalanced in that way, and that's one of our fiscal challenges too. We're very upside down in that our private sector cannot support. When you have 740,000 Alaskans. You can't support a government that's our size. And so that's one reason why I believe the Sunset Commission is very important, because in an unbiased way that has teeth, in other words, their recommendations go in a bill that must be taken up. And it can be amended, but it has to be passed. Otherwise, that government state agency goes away. There's going to be an uptick in efficiency and actually, frankly, better service for Alaska. It should speed up things. Artificial intelligence, there's scary stuff about it, but it has to be harnessed for good. And it could has the potential that we won't need as many state workers. And of course, you need human oversight. And of course, you need transparency. And you need a way for an appeal process that isn't through AI, but is through a person. I totally believe in that. But there is actually a way to save money and to serve Alaskans better. So there's a lot of things that are on the horizon that we need to be bold enough to look at. And I am not a shy person. I am not a fearful person. I'm ready to take a stand and put these things out. You have to do them right. But I believe between the Sunset Commission and better efficiency, that then we can and we will be focusing on the private sector. And I hope that the legislature would work with me to do that. I do believe, as I said before, before we took the little transition here, that I have successfully worked with those across the aisle. The Reads Act would not have happened. I don't know if you know the history of that, Michael. That's kind of fun because Roger Holland were friends. But Roger became the education chair, as you would call him. He came to me because I had been the chair. And he basically said, Shelley, any ideas? I'm open because I've never done this. I don't know that much. And I walked in on the first day, Michael, and I looked at who was on the committee, and I was the majority leader. The Senate president was one of the members. The Senate rules chair was one of the members, and the Senate minority. It was leadership and Roger as the chair. And so I went to Senator Begich after because he had a bill that had some literacy pieces.
Hold on.
Okay.
The Michael Duke Show. Seriously humorous with a pinch of intellect. Sorry. That is humorous. Here's Michael Dukes.
That was just mean. He didn't need to be that. Anyway, welcome back to the program. Thank you so much. The Michael Duke Show continues. Our guest, State Senator Shelley Hughes, now running for governor. She had a thought before I interrupted her for the break, and we were talking about where the state's going, and we were talking about public versus private sector, and she had a thought, and so I want you to finish that thought, Shelley, as we go through there, because again, what I'm seeing is a lot of push to support and protect the public sector, the government spend, but not a lot on the private sector spend. So I'll let you finish that thought before we move on.
Absolutely. And that's what this current legislative cycle has been about, protecting the public sector, pushing the defined benefits, worried about that the state system as well as the district systems. So as a governor, I would be focused on the private sector, and that involves working with a legislator. And I was giving Michael the example, everyone out there, that when I say I know how to work and build consensus, that's not a one-liner. I can give you concrete examples. And I was giving a little history of when Senator Roger Holland was the education chair. And he came to me because I had been an education chair prior, and to say, hey, if you have any ideas of what we could work on, I'm open. I've never done this before. And the first day I walked into the committee, I realized everybody on the committee with the education chair were on the leadership. You had the Senate president, the Senate rules chair. I was Senate majority leader, and we had the Senate minority leader. And it dawned on me, I had filed the Reads Act a couple sessions prior. We'd had hearings, but couldn't really get it anywhere. And Senator Tom Begich, a Democrat, had filed a bill also that had parts of the early literacy in it as well. So after we met, I went to Senator Begich and I said, looking at this committee, if we could help the Senate president, Senate rules chair understand, that this is a proven strategy that would help improve student outcomes, I think we could get this through this year, because it'd been batted around for years. It had been introduced probably 8-10 years ago, something like that. And so with that, we started having hearings, and sure enough, everyone saw the light, realized it was working well in states like Mississippi that were at the bottom of the barrel. And by golly, I actually went to Senator Holland at the time, and I said, you could take Tom's bill, put it together, my bill, and it could be a committee bill. And so that is the bill that worked its way through. And then in the end, there were some snafus in the House, and the language got put into a House bill that had already passed, and then it went back for concurrence. And that's we have the Reads Act in place now. So that is one of a number of cases where I've worked across the aisle, built consensus, and we've gotten major things done. So just want to say, of course, that again was working for our students. And that actually ties in to the private sector, Michael, because education is key in order to have a workforce. And I want to talk about that too, because this is one of the solutions I want to offer. My vision is that we have a booming economy and that people have wonderful livelihoods. They can pursue happiness without being burdened down, and that we reduce in the process that our spending and our social programs will shrink. Those, the social safety net is supposed to be temporary for those that are working age able-bodied, and we sometimes need it long term, like for instance for very elderly who can't go get a job at that point, and of course for children who are born into situations through no fault of their own. But we're jeopardizing it for children and elderly and disabled the way we're running it now. And here is an example. I'm going to tie it back into education. Right now in the United States, 1 in 5 is on Medicaid. In Alaska, it is more than 1 in 3. It's 37%. That is not sustainable. And it's actually, it isn't even right, because we should be having job opportunities for the working age able-bodied people that they can move into where they can make six-figure jobs. And with the projects coming on board, that is actually something we can open the door to. And I will pause for a minute, but I have a plan, a solution that could help get us there, Michael.
Well, we've created a dependency state. That's what we have here. Is we have a dependency state in the state of Alaska where everybody's dependent on the government for all the solutions, and that is part of the problem. And that's why we have such a large and bloated government as we have right now. And I want to come to it, but I have some questions that I have to get to before we get going on too far. Of course, we're facing, like I said earlier, up to 9 candidates on the Republican ticket. And we expect Adam Crum will make the announcement in a week or so. And then there's rumors that Craig Taylor may join the race. That would make 9 candidates on the Republican side. There's 1 Democrat that's filed, and so we don't know exactly what else is going to come out of that, but it's going to be a busy season, and that's going to lead us to the question of the jungle primary and ranked choice voting. We saw what happened during the last House race, the congressional race, and we saw that at that time, we could have got snockered again with Republicans fighting against Republicans at the top of the ticket, and that would have been difficult. That's how we got Mary Peltola the first time. So instead, Nancy Dahlstrom bailed out, and the other candidates bailed out to where it was basically just down to really a Begich and Peltola race. So the question to candidates this time around is, if you are not the top vote getter in the primary, will you step out? Will you step back and endorse whoever is the number 1 candidate? Will we have some kumbaya go on there? What is your take?
Thank you for the question. I may have been the first one to let our GOP chair, because I think I told her it was probably, I don't know, March or something, April. Before I even made my decision, I told her that she could count on me in that. We've got to keep a Democrat from winning during this period of time. Otherwise, we're going to end up with income tax. We're going to drive people out of state. It's going to be a downward turn. So I did commit to that. Our job, though, is to make sure that the Republicans that make it into the top 4 are true Republicans, because we have seen where people will put the Republican label by their name, but they essentially aren't much, if at all, a Republican. You have to go by that 80-20 rule at least for that Reagan put forward. But we've got some people that use the R label. I'm not even sure if that they're at the 50-50 mark. So that's one of the things to make sure real Republicans get in there. And then we need to get behind the top vote getter Republican. The other ones need to pull out. So yes, I have agreed to that. I will then, try to get the Republican elected, whoever it is, if it isn't me. Of course, I want it to be me, Michael.
Sure. No,
Yeah.
I mean, I can see believing in your cause for sure. But I mean, if it comes down to that point, do we split the vote because we still believe that we're the best, even though we know that statistically it will split the vote and we'll end up with even an even worse outcome at that point? That's the bigger question. You talked about it earlier. I talked about it earlier. We talk about it in this program all the time. We are, we're in dire straits here. The state, like you said it's going to be a difficult term. It's going to be problematic to say the least because of where we're at and the size and scope of government and the fact that we're $1.5 billion upside down. The question is, number one, it's a two-part question. How do we pay for it? How do we pay for the government just for this next year? And I'm not talking about some amorphous, we'll develop resources down the road. And, that's all got long tails. I'm talking about how do we pay for it next year? $1 billion to $1.5 billion deficit. And what is the long-term fiscal plan? Do you have one? Are you utilizing the fiscal policy working group's plan? Is that going to be part of your platform? Where are we at? Tell me, how do we pay for it now? And what is the long-term fiscal plan for Shelley Hughes?
Okay, how pay fiscal plan. I'm going to finish, though, what I was saying about education, because people need to know when I talk about things, it's real solutions. And what I'm hearing back to the projects, the unsustainable Medicaid and education all ties together. These are really fundamental to our state. Right now, with these projects coming in line, we're talking about the gas line. We're talking about sockeye, which is a promising, and with the federal administration, we can ramp that up and get there sooner. The challenges I'm hearing from industry that they're going to have to import workers from out of state. Many of those workers, we need expertise. Sometimes we don't have. I get that. But often those workers then take those paychecks and leave the state. And at the same time, with that high number of working age, able-bodied people on Medicaid, that is a problem. So I have had multiple employers in my office tell me that they offered a promotion and a raise to a young man or young woman who turned it down. These were young people that had good work ethic and lots of potential, and they turned it down because they'd lose their Medicaid coverage for their family. We have to fix that. There are people on Medicaid that could be trained for these projects, for these six-figure jobs, and we need to work on that. We need to have a transition off of Medicaid. So that's part of my plan. Education ties into that because we're hearing from the workforce that our students graduating are not equipped, whether it's to go to college or to technical kind of training just for basic math and things like that is needed. So that's my tie-in. Now I'll answer your question about how do we pay for it this year. Well, I wouldn't be governor this year, so I don't know what the Democrat majority is going to be. But I can talk about how I would craft a budget and about the fiscal plan. I believe we need to look closely at what is constitutionally mandated to ensure that we are covering in statutorily mandated, and then you build your budget that way. And then you look at everything that's optional, that's discretionary, and you prioritize. And that's how you do it. And, that's why the Sunset Commission, back to that, is so important, because that's going to help us restructure things in a way that is more efficient and less costly. And so you've got to get that going. That's a long-term thing that goes on every year where you're looking at things. The state of Texas has saved billions of dollars over time. It's not a, chop off an arm and a leg kind of thing. It's a thoughtful, deliberate process with a year-long audit and public input, and then through the legislature. But that's got to go on. In the meantime, we have to look closely. Now, the fiscal plan, as I said before, is important because you could have a governor come in that works well with the legislature and gets things in good shape, and then it could go to pot the next year. So the fiscal plan is important, and that is to get a constitutional spending cap in place. And I will tell you, one of the things that I want to see is a constitutional spending cap that does have some leeway when savings are built up and there are the funds to put it into infrastructure. We are very lean on infrastructure in the state. Look at a map. Look how many roads there are. So we have work to do. And I just want to say another thing that I would pursue is a partnership with tribes on building roads. It has been, to my knowledge, it hasn't been done a lot, but talking to a gentleman recently when I toured the Port McKenzie, and there was discussion about the West Sioux Access Road. The tribes have the ability to build and maintain roads with federal dollars they can access that are not dollars that the state can access. And those roads are for all Alaskans. They would provide public access. We need to take advantage of that for infrastructure. So that would help on the capital budget side. On the other side, I'm very interested in tribal schools. It's really something because I had a long conversation this weekend about it. It makes sense to me. So I was very surprised on Friday to see the governor actually had that in his list for policy reforms. Tribal compact schools would allow rural schools, they still have to meet the state standards as far as the learning objectives, but they would take ownership of their schools. The absenteeism rate is horrible across the state. It's very bad in rural schools. But the tribes could build a curriculum that meets the state objectives, but also would be more relevant and hopefully interesting enough the students would show up. They also could draw federal funds. So that's part of the budget solution as well for infrastructure and for schools. And then just working where we can, where we understand what's required and what is discretionary and prioritize that.
Shelley Hughes is our guest. We're going to continue here in just a moment. Don't go anywhere. We got more coming up. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. One final segment dead ahead. We'll be back for more. Don't go anywhere. We'll return right after this.
Listened to by more staffers in Juneau than any other show because their bosses told them to. And after what they just heard, oh man, they're going to be pissed.
You're a bad, bad man.
The Michael Duke Show.
Okay, Shelley Hughes is our guest, and we are continuing now with her. Shelley, we kind of missed the question on the fiscal policy working group. Well, I mean, you were part of that. It was very comprehensive. It was it was a very separate group, but you all finally came together in kumbaya. I mean, it's a blueprint. It could be used. It could be outlined. And yet, Ben Carpenter beat his head against the wall till he was gone, trying to get it done. It seemed like everybody agreed, but then nobody agreed. Is it a good blueprint for, for a fiscal plan for the state for the long? You mentioned the cap, the constitutional spending cap. That's one component of it. What about all the others? What's your take?
I ran out of time to get all the way through it. The Sunset Commission is the reduction piece. So you have the cap and the reductions. And then you have the revenue pieces that when involved approval by taxpayers with a spending cap, that approval by taxpayers and a sunset, so they'd be reviewed. And what's the fourth piece? I'm going blank. What is it, Michael? It's a cap.
Well, it's
the reductions and the revenues. Oh, settling the PFD in the Constitution.
Yep. Settling the PFD in the Constitution and creating a new formula. So that
is another excellent example of how I work together across the aisle. And Michael, we have talked about this, but it was a while ago since that rolled out. And so Alaskans need to understand when we rolled it out, even in the legislature. We had a couple meetings, the 8 or so of us that worked in the alternates. We met in my office a few times after it rolled out and we all came to Juneau. And so we were representing the 4 caucuses, the 2 majorities, 2 minorities. And our sense was that about 50 out of 60 in the building supported it because, we were talking to our colleagues and we came back together and realized the 10, 12 that didn't support it were leadership, including finance co-chairs and also judiciary chairs. And that is that you can't get the items through if you don't have your judiciary chairs and your finance co-chairs on board. and your rules tier too would be important for that. So one of the things when Dunleavy talked about urging the legislature to work with him and come to the table on a fiscal plan, even this interim, I told the Senate president it will be a meaningless exercise unless at the table with the governor would be those people in leadership, because they're going to have to agree, and they could take the blueprint we provided and start there. But that obviously that hasn't happened. But that was the pitfall that occurred when we brought it forward. We had enough support, we had enough votes, but you couldn't get the pieces through. One of the other things you have to do with those pieces, you've got to hook them together, because you're not going to get enough vote, for instance, for constitutional spending cap with that high vote threshold, unless the Democrats are going to want to know that other pieces are moving through. So they have to be contingent upon one another. You've got to hook them together. And that I would support that. I would continue to promote that as governor. That is a necessary piece for fiscal stability and for private sector prosperity in our state. So it's very important.
Yeah, I mean, this is again part of the problem. Again, is that single subject rule thing, and everything else. Although I would argue that since it's an entire fiscal plan, that it does cover one subject. But I guess that's an argument for me and somebody else. But
the problem with that, Michael, is your spending cap and your PFD involve our constitutional issues.
Yeah.
So
outside of that, though, I think every other piece could be rolled into a single bill and then have two separate constitutional questions and have everything contingent on that, I guess, at that point. I mean, you could, we've seen that contingencies have been used in these things. We could do that as well. But we need a fiscal plan. That's the problem. We need a fiscal plan. Heretofore, we haven't had any. It's basically just been spend whatever we got and then look for more.
Michael, it gives me hope. Think about the need for a fiscal plan. When was that discussion started? I remember hearing it in the 90s. Maybe it was before that. But think about the fact that we've heard about the gas line, how many decades we have heard about that, and that is moving forward. So it gives me great hope. I have tremendous hope for this state, Michael. Governors always talk about unleashing the potential in our state. But there are some very critical steps that need to be taken. And one of them is a leader, and I would be that leader that would be bold enough to stand up and fight for our right to develop our resources, to push back. We've had different administrations. It's not going to be the same administration we have now. And we don't know what it's going to look like next, but we have to take our rightful place. One of the things I would be looking for is an attorney general, already considering some of those names, who would fight for our equal, using the equal footing doctrine. We have a favorable U.S. Supreme Court. We were brought into the union on unequal footing, and we need our rightful place. There's no reason when states like New York are less, the federal government owns less than 1%.
Public enema number one. Oh, wait, sorry. Public enemy number one, which makes more sense. On the other hand, he's a little bit of a pain in the Michael Duke show.
All right, we're continuing. Shelley Hughes, our guest. She was just finishing up a thought about unequal access and being brought into the state. We were talking about some of that stuff. Go ahead and finish that thought, Shelley, before I ask you next question.
The equal footing access, the premise is that the states were to be brought into the union on equal footing. And we have states where the federal government owns less than 1% or less than 5%. And yet Alaska, the agreement to come into the union was that the state would get, I think it's 63% of our federal land as the owners. And that isn't right. And not only that, when we came into statehood, we gave up our subsurface rights. So we really got a raw deal. And as much as I know what happened in Congress is changing the 50-50, got it 90-10 down to 70-30. That's limited to certain federal lands. And it's also put off a number of years, which makes me concerned. Hopefully our federal delegation can hold the line so that doesn't get undone. But with that, we also need to regain some of those federal lands. when only 1% of our state is available for private land ownership. Again, there's too much emphasis on public lands. I do want to mention Florida, that was brought into the Union in the mid 1800s. And they were an enormous amount. They were the first state where this happened, enormous amount given to the federal government. And their federal delegation, session after session, went to Congress, chipped away, got pieces and bills. And now essentially the only thing the federal government owns in Florida are the Everglades, which isn't usable for development. So that's the kind of thing that we, of course, we have beautiful national parks. We have a big state, so there would still be national parks. We're not going to wipe all those out. But I do believe that with the U.S. Supreme Court, that we should work on that and see if we can make headway. I think that would really, really help. It would help on the resource development as well. And as an example, the Willow Project on federal land, the revenue from that, we get about 3%.
Right.
Sockeye Project is on state land, and that's 16%. So that tells you how we're getting the shaft with the federal government ownership.
And that's actually a great segue into our next segment, because we keep hearing about, drill, baby, drill. The Trump administration are doing great things, opening NPRA and the federal lands and ANWR. That's all great stuff. Don't get me wrong. It provides jobs. It does a lot of other things. But we've had the analysis. Brad Keithley's talked about it. We're looking at a projected 40% increase in oil production through all these new projects that they're talking about and everything else. But because of the way the oil taxes is structured, we're looking at a 55% reduction in actual take to the state, even with those projected increases in production, because of the way the taxation is on the investment revenue and the fact that our take is so small on the state side. So, I mean, as much as we could drill, baby, drill, it's one of those things where quantity does not make up for quality. You can drill more and make less, and that's part of our problem.
Yeah, I would be very leery, and I'm happy to look at what Brad has. But I do know I was the lead on the Senate resources along with Senator Myers in pushing back on the effort to tax Hillcorp. And the reason I did, Michael, is actually Senator Giesel was kind of funny. She took some screenshots and provided them up on the screen and at our desks, showing the government take in the Hillcorp's other projects. And there was one, I think it was New Mexico and Colorado, the San Juan Basin, the take in a year between the two states was $300 million. And so I asked Hillcorp, who was at the table, what their take was, and the government take was about $1 billion. Now, some of that was federal, some of that was royalties. But even if you back that out, it exceeded what the two states, New Mexico and Colorado, were getting for a very similar barrel of oils. And then I asked the representative from Hillcorp, what are the cost of doing work differences between Alaska and New Mexico and Colorado? And he indicated that certain aspects of their work literally cost 10 times more, for instance, to move a rig. So their costs are higher. So we have to be really careful what we do because of the cost, because all these companies have portfolios where they, instead of investing in Alaska, they can shift and turn to the lower 48 or another country and invest there instead of Alaska. So it's a very delicate balance, right? It's the Laffer curve. You can hit the point where you're not getting the return that you think you're going to get. So we have to do that very judiciously. And I'm not somebody that's just going to jump on board on that. I am not supporting what Bill Wielechowski is trying to do. I am very open to an analysis, but we need to really factor in the cost of doing business. And it is so much higher. You consider the lack of roads, the cold, the dark, the short season, the distance bringing things up from the lower 48, the cost of labor, and the fact that people don't go home in their own beds at night. They've got to fly up and be away from their families. It is a different environment in Alaska, and we have to factor that into the equation.
State Senator Shelley Hughes is our guest. Shelley, we're down to the last 3 minutes here. I've still got a ton of questions, but I want to give you the opportunity, tell folks, what you see as the big challenge, what you see as the solution, and your final thoughts here. I'll give it to you.
Well, I know we have quite a large menu, you might say, of candidates running right now, and people have different appetites for different things. One of the strong points and why I think I would be the best choice is because I have a proven track record. People know that I've stuck to my principles. They can look at my voting record. They know what I campaign on, I stick with. I've got that record. Other candidates don't. Secondly, because I've lived all over the state, Michael, I have an appreciation for every single community. I respect, I have an understanding, and I want to work together to make the lives of the people in all those communities have opportunities and a better chance for a better livelihood. I also am good with relationships. I understand the workings. I have the skill set of being a proven skill set of being a consensus builder without forsaking my values. Those are things that I bring to the table, and I'm not going to give one-line pieces of rhetoric that sound good and tickle the ears. I'm offering solutions, a solution to reduce our Medicaid population and build our workforce at the same time. Those are the kind of things that we need to move forward. I want to say one more thing I'm really excited about, and that's a possibility of getting the Susitna-Watana Dam going again. With this administration in DC, we have the possibility of actually getting that FERC license. And if we do, there is investment from our allied nations interested in that, just like they are the gas line. That was not spoken in June from the stage at the energy conference, but down on the floor in my conversations, there is tremendous interest in that. We could, in a matter of a couple of years, get that while the Trump administration is still in office. We could get that FERC license and move that forward. You add that with the natural gas, and it's going to open tremendous opportunities. I'm also not afraid of innovation. I was the lead on unmanned aircraft, harnessing that for good. I've been the lead on artificial intelligence, harnessing that for good. So I have a very broad understanding of many issues. I will not be a single focus candidate, except I would say I will be focused on Alaska and the betterment of our state now and in the future, Michael.
Shelley, how do folks find out more about you? Where do they go quickly?
AlaskansForHughes.com. We're still updating that website. It was my Senate website, so please be patient with us. We have to do some revisions, but we're getting started on that, Michael. And on social media, Alaskans for Hughes as well.
Okay. All right, Shelley Hughes, thank you for coming on board. We appreciate it. Folks, we're out of time for today. We got more coming up tomorrow. Gubernatorial candidate Edwin DeVries joins us. And then on Friday, of course, it's Firearms Friday. Be kind. Love one another. Live well. We'll see you tomorrow. Have a great day, folks. All right, Shelley, I give you a final bite at the apple. Anything that I didn't hit that you wanted to hit, here's your chance to set the record straight on anything or do whatever you need to do here.
I didn't talk about agriculture. And, there's mixed feelings about that. Should we have a Department of Ag? Should we not? I don't see it as big government. I see it as getting a commissioner at the cabinet table. So, whoever's the current governor and future governors will always have that voice. We are overly dependent on the outside, and Scandinavia, which is at the same latitude, exports $10 billion worth of ag products and goods. We import $3 billion. So we are upside down. There is potential. It takes a lot of work. And one of the things, if you have a commissioner, you can have those commissioner to commissioner relationships. A huge part of moving ag forward is a more developed transportation system, completing the rail, the Northern Rail, the Matsu Rail extension. And as we see increased shipping lanes and things from our West Coast, the Port of Nome, Asia is hungry for our ag markets. Think of Japan, how many people live on those islands, and so many people, and they would love access to some of our foods. And our farmers tell me if they're going to keep a steady supply, a reliable supply on our store shelves, many of these things require a larger market. 740,000 people spread across a large landmass won't do it. They need an export market. So there is opportunity. Just like the seafood industry, we've become a major player in the seafood industry. That there was a lot of concerted effort in decades ago to make that happen. And we could do the same thing with ag. There are young people interested in it. And Michael, when I can't tell you which food products, but many food products, by the time 3 days after they're harvested, only have about half the nutritional value. So this would help with our health across our state. That would help our crazy Medicaid budget. Children would do better in school with good nutrition and alert brains. So there's a lot of benefits. There's no downside. And guess who established the U.S. Department of Ag years ago? Do you know what president did that?
McKinley? I don't know.
It was Abraham Lincoln.
Abraham Lincoln. Okay. All right.
Food is essential to life. We're not talking about a big bureaucracy. We're not talking about heavy restrictions. We're talking about providing basic support that is appropriate for government and to allow the private sector to prosper. So the governor, of course, has an EO. I don't expect that to go anywhere this session. We didn't even talk about the special session, but there you have it.
No, I mean, again, the fastest hour in radio for sure. I still have a whole list of questions to get through. But again, I'm skeptical on the Department of Ag and the Agricultural Commissioner, because again, my idea of creating more bureaucracy to deal with other bureaucracies as a justification to me is kind of iffy, but I know that we differ on that. Again, I think what we really need is for government to get out of the way in a lot of these things, and that's part of our problem.
Well, Michael, I'm gonna push back a little bit, because the government's been out of the way on ag. There's been not a whole lot happening, and it hasn't been working. And we're not talking about adding employee. We're talking about cost neutral. We're just talking about getting the commissioner at the cabinet table so they can shepherd some of these things, because it does take cooperation across departments for some of these things to happen. For instance, in the marketing piece is the Department of Commerce, the infrastructure piece is the Department of Transportation. And so we're not talking about growing bureaucracy. We're talking about changing it so it can be a part of the conversation. Right now, the Department of Natural Resources is all about subsurface resources because of the revenue, right? So this would provide, we could also grow the timber industry if we had that focus. So the Department of Ag would be for those resources that are above ground. And so it makes sense, and we got to do it without growing bureaucracy, without increasing costs.
That's the challenge. The challenge is the government by its very nature grows, and the supposition that we would only need a commissioner and it would be no other bureaucrats, and it would be that might be true this year, maybe next year, but in 10 years we'd look back and I guarantee you there would be mission creep and growth, and that's what scares me. That's what makes me leery of that idea.
That's why you need the Sunset Commission, because I'm guessing there's things in other agencies that have outlived their useful life, and Sunset Commission paired with a very small and concise Department of Ag would really help our state.
All right, Shelley Hughes, well, we're going to have you back on the program, because again, we didn't get into the Permanent Fund Corporation. We didn't get into the statute, state of the PFD. We didn't get into, like you said, we didn't talk about the special session. We didn't talk about the corporation board. We didn't talk about a lot of stuff, but I want to get back to it. So we'd love to have you back on the program here sometime in the near future to go over some of that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It is the fastest hour. It's amazing how quickly it goes. And I just want to thank all your listeners out there for considering me as a candidate, and go to Last for Hughes. Reach out to me. My cell phone number is 907-841-1634. It's out there. You can Google it. But one of my premises and principles that I've operated on, Michael, is that a representative democracy, a republic only functions well when it's both the elected official listening to the people and the people giving input. I can't be a good senator unless I know what the people are thinking. And the same thing goes with being a governor. So my door is always open. I believe I've been known for being very accessible, and that will continue. And I'm excited about this avenue, this journey, because instead of just hearing from Senate District M, I will be hearing from people in communities across the state. And I want that people to feel like they have access to me. I know it gets difficult, for a governor to hear from everyone, but that will be a challenge I will take on. And one closing thought, Michael, that will be a little bit different. I will not be afraid to use the bully pulpit. I will use it it might be only a couple minutes every day or two, but I will not be holding lengthy press conferences and then letting the media spin what I have to say. I will hold press conferences, but I will also speak directly to the people so they know what is going on. So, Alaskans have my commitment.
That's what you've been doing as a senator, which I think, if you continue that, that's definitely in your win column, because that's something that we've needed that we have not gotten from this governor. As nice a guy as he is, he has refused to utilize the tools at his disposal, and I think to his detriment. And I agree that direct communication with the people is important. Somebody just said you need to listen to Tuesday's show, because we talked about the oil taxes and what's going on with the federal projects and everything else. You definitely need to get to that. And you could go back, Shelley, after we get done here, and you can scroll through. There's a bunch of comments in here. If you want to comment and reply to some of the questions that are in the chat room, that would probably be great as well, because there's lots of questions in the chat room that we didn't get to as well. So anyway, Shelley Hughes, appreciate you coming on board. Thank you for being part of it today. And we look forward to talking to you again here in a couple of weeks or so.
Thank you, Michael, and thank you for the venue you provide so voters know what their options are.
I appreciate that. All right. Thank you so much. Shelley Hughes, our guest. Folks, we are out of time for today. We got to go. We got to get out of here. Got stuff to do, things to see. I got to see a man about a horse or something. I don't know. It's all out there. All right, my friends, we are done. Again, I want you to be kind. I want you to love one another, and I want you to live well. Even when you disagree. Yes, even when you disagree with them. Be kind. We will continue. All right, my friends. We'll see you then. Have a good day.
We've shed our terrestrial radio skin, and now we are slimy lizard internet people. It's the Michael Duke Show.